We are recording. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Revolutionary Agreements Workshop. I am absolutely thrilled that you're here and really excited to share what I feel is the most powerful practice that you can incorporate in your life to align with your divine purpose. And I want to start by acknowledging you for being here with us tonight. We all have very busy lives, and there's a lot of other places that you could be, so I'm really appreciating that you're here with us. I really do believe that this is the most important thing that any of us can do to bring more freedom and joy into our lives. And with all that's happening in the world right now, especially here in the US, this work is absolutely critical to navigate through the challenging times and maintain a state of inner peace. We'll be talking a lot about inner peace flowing out to becoming the outer peace that we all want in the world. So before we get started, I do recommend that you have something to journal in, preferably paper and pen. It's nice to have that feeling. But if you do prefer digital, you want to take notes in the computer, that's fine. You may also want a glass of water handy. I do want to encourage you to close down anything else that you might be working on. Let go of any thoughts that you're holding on to from what happened earlier in the day or what might be coming up for you tomorrow. Just take a deep breath with me. Be fully present right here. What you're about to experience is very special, and I want to make sure that you're fully present and open to receive. So again, just a little bit of housekeeping. We are on Zoom, so we can all see each other and connect more deeply. And as I mentioned, would prefer if you can be on gallery so you can see everybody, or you can put it on speaker view if you want to see who's talking bigger, especially if it's Marion. I do want to start with an introduction to our facilitator, Marion. I met Marion at a co-creators convergence in 2015, and my life has never been the same. She is a radiant being, as you will see, with a passion to create no less than peace on earth by offering tools for greater inner peace. The revolutionary agreements that she's going to share with you today have provided me with a simple and powerful structure for being the change that I wish to see in the world. I consider them the constitution for the Inspired Messengers Network that I founded 2 years ago. I'm delighted to introduce my friend Marion Head. There's really no one label to define this woman. She's a businesswoman, having built a multi-million-dollar global nutrition business. She's an educator, having designed and taught graduate-level business communications, and then with her husband initiated and co-chaired the nation's first graduate department of leadership and organizational transformation. She's also a facilitator called on to serve some of the most transformational events in our history, including Soviet American Citizens Summit in Washington, D.C. and Moscow, to help break down stereotypes at the end of the Cold War. She served luminaries such as His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Vice President Al Gore, and then President Mikhail Gorbachev in Oxford and Moscow at the first global forums of spiritual and parliamentary leaders on human survival. Marion is the author of 3 books, including the award-winning Revolutionary Agreements. She is also Glenn's loving wife of 33 years and mother of their 26-year-old son and friend to many, including me and my family. Marion says the Revolutionary Agreements are the foundation to her great success in all her endeavors, whether in business, education, citizen diplomacy, or at home in her marriage and parenting. Our intention for you is to walk away from today's webinar with tools that you can put into effect immediately to enjoy a successful, thriving life. Yet, obviously, an hour is a short time to create that kind of a transformation and to really be able to digest all that Marion has to offer. So I want you to know that she is accepting a small number of coaches, facilitators, and trainers into a Revolutionary Agreements certification program, which begins very soon, in fact, on February 15th. So I'm going to post the link for that program in the chat box, and we'll direct your attention to that later on in the program, but we don't want to distract from our conversation. And as one of the graduates of the certificate program myself, I'll be offering a 12-week virtual program that gives you 1 full week to savor and digest and integrate each of the 12 agreements into your life. So after the webinar, if you feel called to add these agreements to your professional toolkit, please consider Marion's Revolutionary Agreements Certification Program. And if you just want these agreements for your own personal development, I'd be delighted for you to join my program, which is starting a week earlier on February 8th. I told her I might push it back to the same date as hers, but my Vedic calendar says February 8th is the perfect day to start. So let us welcome Marion. Where is the mute? There we go. Hi, Marion.
Hi, Mark. Wow, that was a stellar introduction. I am so delighted. Now, you know, those of you who use Zoom, you know that when I look at the camera, it looks like I'm looking at you, but every now and then I'm going to look down because I really want to look at your faces on the screen. So I just have to have that delight too. So I am so excited to share with you these agreements which have served me and thousands for over 30 years. The agreements were inspired by a personal and professional development program that my husband Glenn and I did in the early 1980s. And many of our friends attended it as well, called Money and You. Years later, we invited some friends over, business friends primarily, over to our house to explore how we could support one another in support one another by living our highest values in all aspects of our lives, and especially in the workplace where we spent most of our time. At that very first gathering, we began to develop a set of agreements that were called Geneva Group agreements because we called ourselves the Geneva Group. And that group wound up meeting with no membership and no obligation every month for a full day for the next 20 years. And it was a surprise to us at 20 years that it was 20 years. At the beginning of each of our gatherings, we read the agreements aloud, and we would talk about how they were influencing our lives, our partners, our business partners, our clients, vendors, community, families. So as we evolved, those agreements evolved. The revolutionary agreements are my version of the essence of those agreements. Now, in a moment, I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see the agreements on a beautiful art poster. And for those of you who called in and can't see them, I will read them aloud. While I read them, I invite each of you to listen carefully. Consider which one of the 12 agreements could make the greatest positive difference in your life if you were to choose to practice it daily now. The agreements self-organize into 3 what I call pillars of a good life: truth, acceptance, and gratitude. TAG, which is tag, as in tag, you're it. So the truth is about being the truth of who you are, being your authentic self. Acceptance is accepting others for who they are. And gratitude, well, that's just feeling and expressing our appreciation for every precious moment of this life. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you now so you can see the agreements. And again, listen carefully for the agreement that jumps out at you and says, practice me. You'll be happy you did. And here we go. And there are the agreements. Can everybody see those, Mark? Let me know. Yes, thank you. And I'm going to put you all back on my other screen so I can keep looking at you. All right, so in the area of truth, the first agreement is I agree to live my mission. And then speak my truth with compassion. Look within when I react. And keep doing what works and change what doesn't. In the area of acceptance, I agree to listen with my heart, to respect our differences, to resolve conflicts directly, and to honor our choices. And in the area of gratitude, I agree to give and receive thanks, see the best in myself and others, look for blessings in disguise, and finally, last and definitely not least, lighten up. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share. For the moment. There you are. So take a moment to write down, if you didn't already, the words "I agree to," and then complete your sentence with the agreement that you chose to practice. Now, I'm sure you're already using some of the principles behind these agreements, or all of them, because they are timeless and because you're who you are and you're invited by somebody on this screen. So what makes them revolutionary, after all? Well, what makes them revolutionary is actually practicing them. Actually practicing them. So to give you an idea of what you can expect when you practice the one you chose or others, I'd like to share with you what just 2 of the hundreds of people have told me over the years who are practicing these agreements. And then I'm going to guide you to begin your practice, a practice that could simply and profoundly, positively influence the rest of your life. Okay? All right. So here's what a Fortune 100 director of systems and operations wrote in a newsletter. He wrote, 5 years with this company, and I was seriously wondering how long I would last under the present tumultuous conditions. My challenge was finding a workable solution that would inspire a small, non-performing core organization within our bigger corporation to re-engage and move forward. Can you relate to that? Have any of you had similar challenges in your work life? I see some knowing smiles. He went on to write, I met with an internal consultant for some coaching. She gave me a copy of Revolutionary Agreements that I read and reread over the weekend. That was the book he's talking about, not the poster. By Monday, I was energized and ready to recommit myself to take on the role of facilitating positive changes within this core organization. I put up a poster of the agreements outside my office and allowed people to notice and ask questions in their own space and time. I worked with one agreement at a time, watching myself transform as I related to my colleagues in a different way. His story continued, ending with this. We have been functioning as a cohesive team with our new agreements for 7 months now, and to say that this core organization has turned itself around would be an understatement. I can say that I am in love again with my career and assert that the agreements are the best tools for stress reduction I have ever found. I loved hearing this, yes. So who here could handle a little less stress in your life? Oh, good. I'm talking to the right group. All right, so the next story is much briefer, but no less powerful. Lori Weiss is an expert and prolific author on relationships, and she's a professional development coach and therapist. And she wrote, one of my business clients was concerned about losing productivity at work. At closer look, we discovered that the root of the problem was at home. His insistence that his wife support him by acting in ways he deemed right was draining his energy. I suggested that he use the agreement to see the best in myself and others, and requested, why don't you talk with your wife about only what she's doing right for the next week? He did so, and the result was nothing less than transformative. Both his relationship with his wife and his productivity at work experienced a dramatic turnaround. And that was only 1 week. Yeah. So whether it's a relationship at home or at work or with yourself, or if it's more inner peace you crave, let's go dive into these agreements and see if you can use them to get there. So I'm going to take you just a bit deeper into each one of the agreements and offer you an opportunity to play with 2 of them today. My intention, as Mark stated earlier, is for you to leave here with some practical tools for a successful, thriving life, even more than you have now. So in the area of truth, I agree to live my mission is the first agreement. Now, this isn't like any other goal or mission workshop where you're setting goals or you're learning how to identify your mission and then building the steps to achieve them. This is about living the essence of your mission. So for example, let's say that part of your mission is to have financial freedom. If you look at the essence of that mission, it might be to spend more quality time with your children. And yet, in order to get financial freedom, you might be doing just the opposite. You might be spending all of your time working. So to identify the essence of your mission and then carry it out in some way every day, in this example, even 5 minutes at night with your children at their bedtime, maybe talking about what you're grateful for that day and asking them what they're grateful for that day, can be very fulfilling. It's living your mission. So you can get fulfilled now instead of waiting until someday to achieve a mission that may not happen. So let's see, the next agreement is I agree to speak my truth with compassion. And that's just about being honest, about being in integrity, and communicating with the well-being of all parties in mind. And then I agree to look within when I react. So I have a question for you. Do you ever get triggered by what someone else says or does? Any of you? Like have a big emotional reaction to what somebody says or does? Oh yeah, oh sure, I saw an oh sure lip sync. You can use thumbs up on those yes and no questions, if it's a yes for you. Like in front of your face, I can see it. Okay, so this agreement gently reminds us that the source of that trigger is usually how we feel about that behavior in ourselves, even if it was ages ago when we behaved that way or spoke that way. The other person is simply holding up a mirror for us to see ourselves better. And when we know this, the tension between us, the tension I feel about that other person dissipates immediately because it's not about that person. It's fun. This is a fun one to explore in our longer classes. But let's move on to number 4 because I want to give you time to play, and we'll play with this one. So the 4th agreement is I agree to keep doing what works and change what doesn't. So take a moment to write down 3 things that are working for you in your life, that are working for you in your life. Look up at the camera when you're finished so I know I can move on. Still some thinking going on. Okay, now write down 3 things that are not working for you. And again, look up at the camera when you're finished. So now we're going to the movies, and we're going to go to a double feature, but the double feature is only 3 minutes long, so not to worry. We're going to watch 2 short video clips that help us understand how to change what doesn't work. First, a short clip from the movie, What the Bleep? Who here has seen that movie? Oh, good. Well, this segment should bring back the power of the mind in creating our reality. It shows us what happens biologically when we repeat the same thoughts and actions. And while seeing it is, a picture's worth 1,000 words, there are many words. So those of you who are on your phones, you'll be able to hear the words. And if you want to, you can play the replay to see the videos. And then after the first video from What the Bleep, which is less than a minute long, we will move immediately into the second video. For those of you who have called in, listen carefully. Here we go. I'm going to go to the first video. Okay, Mark, give me a thumbs up.
You're there.
Thanks. Here we go.
Who is in the driver's seat when we control our emotions or we respond to our emotions? We know physiologically that nerve cells that fire together wire together. If you practice something over and over again, those nerve cells have a long-term relationship. If you get angry on a daily basis, if you get frustrated on a daily basis, if you suffer on a daily basis, if you give reasons for the victimization in your life, you're rewiring and reintegrating that neural net on a daily basis, and that neural net now has a long-term relationship with all those other nerve cells called an identity. We also know that nerve cells that don't fire together no longer wire together. They lose their long-term relationship because every time we interrupt the thought process that produces a chemical response in the body, every time we interrupt it, those nerve cells that are connected to each other start breaking the long-term relationship.
Okay, and moving on to the next.
Hi, let's have a quick pit stop, shall we? Now, here's today's message. Get off that neural pathway and lay a fresh track. When I work with clients, I usually have to explain to them that when we lay down patterns of behavior and patterns of thought even, we're laying neural pathways, and our brain works by repetition. The more we repeat something, the easier it becomes. The more we repeat something, the easier it becomes. And then that tends to be our natural inclination. So the more we repeat a thought, which then leads to patterns of behavior, the more easily we'll go that way. And when we've become used to running on adrenaline, being really stressed out, feeling frazzled and overwhelmed, as much as that's really unpleasant, it has become a bit of a comfort zone in the way that our mind is used to going down that road. We've compacted that path and we've made it really smooth traveling along it. We've really hardwired that into our brain. But you can rewire your brain. Now, the way you need to do it, though, is not by going on that path and trying to dig up everything you've done. Leave it alone already. The more you mess with it, the stronger you actually make it. Leave it alone. Go lay a fresh track. So I encourage my clients to start the day with a meditation and setting an intention of how they want their day to be, and looking for things along their day that match that pattern. So we can start laying this fresh track, not going back to this track going, oh my God, this is terrible and we're going to dig away at it. Well, you're stomping around all over it. Get off that neural pathway, lay a fresh track of what you do want and how you do want your day to be.
She's wonderful, isn't she? So now choose one item on your not working list that you would like to resolve by changing your mind, by laying a new track, and circle or underline it. I'd like to give you an example of how well this has worked for me, and then invite you to create a plan to address the item you've chosen to change. So this was my problem. I used to think that work was hard. And then one day, one of my business partners said to me, "Isn't our work so easy, fun, and rewarding?" And I said, well, yeah, fun. It's fun because I get to work with you and other friends, and rewarding, absolutely. What we were offering people really served them, and the money was pouring in. So yes, it was rewarding, but easy? no, work is not easy. That's not how I grew up. It's not how I was trained. In fact, a lot of things were hard. So I said to her, you really think it's easy? And she said, yeah, sure. Don't you? And that had me thinking, I need to change what's not working for me here. I would much rather think things are easy than hard, wouldn't you? So I made a commitment to lay a new track. And the next day, everything that I saw, everything that I did, that I noticed was easy, I said, well, that was easy. So I opened the sliding glass door, and along its track, by the way, whoo, and it went so easily. I said, that was easy. I cracked an egg into a pan. Oh, it worked so well. I said, that was easy. There are a million things that are easy all day long that I never noticed because I was focused on what was hard. So I kept focusing on what was easy, and it worked. I wrote a blog about it, and one of the folks who reads my blog sent me this.
That was easy.
Did you hear that?
That was easy.
So now there are two of us who got to say that was easy. And so it can be done. I know it can be done because I changed a lifetime habit by doing it. So it's your turn. What new track could you lay to replace the one that's no longer working for you? Take 1 minute to write down whatever comes to your mind. I'm going to set a timer. Take 1 minute. How can you lay a new track? Okay, time is up. I invite you to focus on building your new track with your thoughts and actions after you leave this webinar. Laying a new neural pathway can take as little as 21 days. Imagine how you'll feel just a month from now when you can cross something off your not working list and maybe even put something new on your it's working list. So let's move on to acceptance. The area of acceptance. The first agreement is I agree to listen with my heart. And that means instead of my critical, analytical, and sometimes judgmental mind, I listen now, I practice listening now to really have the person I'm listening to feel heard. That's a big practice for me. Respecting our differences is the second agreement, and while there are huge differences in the world that cause a lot of strife, actually what I speak about mostly is the little ones every day that bug us and annoy us and keep us from having our own inner peace. So respecting the everyday mundane differences is important. The next agreement is I agree to resolve conflicts directly, meaning as soon as possible and only with the person with whom you can resolve the issue. In fact, many of you raised your hands earlier about stress. I invite you to consider this. Where is most of the stress in resolving issues? Is it at the moment of coming together with the person with whom you can resolve it? Or is it in the days, weeks, months, sometimes years leading up to being with that person? So we can practice resolving conflict directly. It'll relieve a lot of stress. The last one in this area of acceptance, the last agreement, is to honor our choices, to know that we make the best possible decisions we are capable of in that moment of decision. And if the outcome isn't what we expected, then we can apply a previous agreement and do what? Oh.
Lay a fresh track.
Right. Thanks, Mark. I'm glad you had your mic on. The last, but certainly not the least pillar, is the one of gratitude. And the first one is I agree to give and receive thanks. Now, from an early age, we are taught how to say thank you, right? Say thank you to Mrs. So-and-so. But we're not usually taught how to receive thanks. And receiving appreciation is an energy that sometimes expands when you practice it to receiving other things you want, like love and like money. So it's a good one. And then there's seeing the best in myself and others. And I want to pause here to play with this one just a little bit, because this agreement challenges us to stop being so self-critical and critical of others, and instead to see the goodness in each person, including ourselves. This agreement saved my marriage. My husband and I have been married for 33 years, and all of those years have been fabulous except for one. At our 24th wedding anniversary, I realized that if I didn't stop complaining to Glenn about everything that he did, that year in particular, and only, we would not be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. So I practiced what I preached, and I started a gratitude journal where every day I wrote just one thing that I appreciated about him. I looked for the best in him. And honestly, the first day, it was hard to find because I was in a mood for a whole year of being critical. So the first day was hard, but it got easier and it got easier. And years later, I should tell you, I wrote for 121 days. And then I gave Glenn that journal for our 25th anniversary. Years later, he encouraged me to publish that journal, which I didn't want to do at first because it's very personal. But he insisted that it could help people, and it has, and I'm glad I did. And when I wrote it, I realized something really important. And it was something that I wrote on the 5th day of my journaling. What I wrote was, this line will show you the power of practicing this agreement. I wrote, without asking Glenn to do anything differently, I was falling in love with him again. Well, why is this so profound? Because when we have a problem with another person, the other person doesn't necessarily have to do anything to resolve it. We can do it ourselves. We can resolve it ourselves. This is huge. This was a huge aha for me. All of the agreements work when we work them. While it's great if the other person in our relationship practices the agreements too, it is not necessary for us to have greater inner peace or better relationships. Above all else, these agreements are with ourselves. So let's start with ourselves. Write down, let's see, I'm looking at the time. Now, Mark, can we go until 8 after, because we started at 8 after?
Yes.
Good.
I'll give you permission.
Thank you. Write down 3 things about yourself that are simply the best. Now write down the names of 3 people you are closest with in your life. Just their first names. Which one of those 3 do you have the most challenge in seeing their best? Maybe it's someone you have the most conflicts with, or you're critical of the way that person speaks or behaves sometimes. Maybe you get frustrated frequently by something that person does. Circle that person's name if that person is on your paper. And if not, you can do this. You can take this assignment home. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to write down everything you could think of that represents the best in that person, starting by considering their weaknesses and noticing if one of their weaknesses is actually a strength if looked at from a different perspective. I'll give you an example. One of the things that drives me crazy about my husband is he's so slow. Yet it is also his strength. When I am looking for the best in him, what I appreciate is that he is so present. He's never in a rush like I am. He's not stressed out because he's running late, but instead he's in delight with whoever and whatever is in front of him. It's actually a characteristic I'm practicing more myself. So transforming my frustration with Glenn's slowness by seeing the best in him is a practice that I have. So for the next minute, write down everything that represents the best in the person whose name you circled. And I'll set the timer again. 1 minute, everything you can think of that's the best in that person. And here it goes. You just had a taste, I mean, not even a full appetizer, just a taste of the transformative power of 2 of the 12 agreements. Imagine savoring and digesting one agreement over an entire week. Well, as Mark said earlier, you can. Graduates like Mark from the Agreement Certification Program and others who are here today who may have invited you, like Bob. I see Bob on the screen. You can wave, Bob. They are offering 12-week programs, 1 week per agreement, where you get to go deep and high together. And unlike today's brief webinar covering all agreements quickly, there's plenty of time in the longer programs for exploring and embodying the agreements and fun interaction, sometimes even in breakout rooms for more intimacy. I mean, it's very rare for me to talk this much. The longer programs are really for you, for your experience, for your sharing. And so those of you who are facilitators, coaches, trainers, leaders, if you would like to do what Mark and Bob are doing, consider joining my certification program starting February 15th. But because I keep the classes small to maximize interaction, to build our community, and to give me time to support each of you fully, I want to be sure you register soon if you feel called to do so. And to give you a little bonus to do that, if you register before noon on Saturday, I'll send you a gift and you can practice receiving. How's that? I'll send you a copy of the 2nd edition of my book, which is a personalized copy. So that's a $25 value just for the book. And my inscription has no price, which I guess makes it priceless. So Mark suggests I take you behind the scenes at the Agreements Institute for just a few minutes to show you the kind of support certification students get during their program and forever to support their own programs. So I'll speak what we're seeing for those of you who are on the phone instead of on the computer. Mark, are you ready for me to do that?
You got it.
Okay, I'm going to screen share.
And while you're pulling up the screen, I just want to kind of add, you're talking about the group process, and we have a lot of very researched and experienced, evolved souls on the line. When you go through the process as a group, there's something that comes up. In fact, somebody says in the last call it was the same thing, that they don't get triggered easily, that they don't really get triggered. But I know I can think of one person that she gets triggered by almost every single day. That we all know very, very well now. And so there's processes that we go through as a group, and that's really what's the power of it for me, that to watch all of these just beautiful, enlightened people going so deep together and sharing. So
yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. And you know, for people who already are there and actually never get triggered or don't need some of these agreements because it's so integral to them, what they're learning is how to offer a program to people who aren't there yet. And so if you have a love for teaching and leading, facilitating, that would still be for you. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. So here we are, I hope. Are we?
Yep, we're there.
At Agreements Institute. Oh, it's kind of my edit page, but we won't bother with that for now. I don't want to spend too much time in the public area because you can go there on your own if you haven't already, except to say that on this home page, you can see what some of the facilitators, there's Mark, are saying about the program that they graduated from, what other coaches are saying. There's Bob and his beautiful wife, Noelle. And you can schedule a phone call with me so that we can have a more in-depth conversation about whether it's right for you. And you can also download a free poster if you want it. So that's fun on the first page. And there's one of the graduates saying, why wait, take the class. I love that, I love her. Okay, Become Certified is the next page, and this is the page you want to spend most of your time in because it has everything you need to know about the program, what you get, how you can expand your professional practice, what my promise is to you, what the requirements are for you to become certified. So that's a very, very important page for you, but I'm going to take you somewhere you cannot go on your own right now, and that's the member site. On the member site, the first thing that you'll see is a list of all the sessions and everything that you can expect in those sessions, what the objective is, what we'll be covering for every one of them, all the way down to 14. There are 14 sessions in the certification program. For each session, you would come to the course menu each week. We'll go to session 4. And each week when you click on that session, it tells you what our Zoom meeting ID is and has actually a link that'll take you there. The objective for that session, what we're going to cover, which this looks familiar because we went to one of the exercises there, the biological function associated with repeated thoughts and actions. And there's a third video actually, which goes much more deeply into that. What to do prior to the session to prepare, and what to do after the session to fulfill that agreement for yourself. Now, this is all available for you after the certification program to copy and paste into emails to your participants in your 12-week programs. Because I want everybody in the certification program to experience the program just like their participants will be experiencing their 12-week program. The certification program is built around that 12-week program. I don't offer you the guide, the facilitator's guide, or the slides that I use until the day after each session. So the day after session 4, you could go and look at the facilitator's guide, which is a fully scripted guide you may use as is, or you can have your own notes, or you can integrate it into another program that you're already doing. You know, I love when people integrate this into their chosen work. And it's all here if you choose to use what I've done. Here's the setup, because this is the first session that uses breakout rooms. I go over how to enable breakout rooms in Zoom, exactly what to do. Everything that's in red applies to the PowerPoint slides, and every word is there. And if you want to use it, the objective for today's session will be attained when you complete your assignments this week. We explore the agreement. Here's the transcripts from the videos so that you have the transcripts and know what was said during those videos. We embody the 4th agreement. We go into breakout rooms this time. There's always a time to reflect on what was learned. You know, what were your ahas for the day? And then to journal those. And finally, there's a closing practice where we talk about assignments and anchor that day's agreement. So let's see, do I want to go back? Yeah, we'll go back here. And then the PowerPoint slides. I don't like using a lot of PowerPoints because this program is about relationships. What the PowerPoint slides do is they put into one package all the resources that you need for for that session. So Mark, are we seeing Agreements Institute
Yep,
again?
we're there.
Okay, good. All right. So this is a movie that's played before people arrive so that it gets people in their seats early because they're going to want to see the movie, and it changes throughout the program. Here's the video you saw from What the Bleep. This is the other video that talks about how the brain functions. And there she is, our coach. I have a little slide that talks about breakout rooms and what to expect in your breakout room. And here's the music, which is Pachelbel, along with the question for journaling for that day, assignments for the next week, and that's it. So everything's in one package, making it easy for you as the facilitator to deliver your program. I'm going to stop the share. So we have graduates with us today. We're fortunate to have 2 of them here and me. And so if you have questions, Mark, is this a good time for questions from the gallery?
Yes, absolutely. If you're on mute, you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. If you're on the phone, you can hit *6. It will unmute you. And I was also thinking, we had talked about sharing. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is that if you're online, you can look on the chat box right at the very bottom. If you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, next to the big green square that says share screen, there's a chat box. And if you hit that, if you want to post anything in the chat box, I can share it if you want to, or you can do it privately. Also, the links to Marion's program are there, so you can go and just click on that and go right to her website. And she also mentioned my program. So that's a big part of being a facilitator, is that she gives you everything you need to be able to go through this program yourself and be able to incorporate it in whatever type of training that you do. And then being able to actually help us promote it and getting it out there. She has a whole business training piece of it. So again, as a graduate, now I have my program, and so you can see the link there to my sales page, and you can see what you would actually be creating from this program, just to give you an idea. And again, if you feel like joining as a participant, you can do that, but it gives you a good idea of what you would create from this as a facilitator.
Thanks, Mark. And I want to do a shout out to one of the registrants for my next program is actually on the call, and that's Jill, 46, as she shows up. Hey, Jill. Aloha. And there's my husband, Glenn, who I've spoken about a couple of times. He's out in our yard here in Kauai.
I'm by the pool.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So let's revisit. Oh, are there any questions? Because it didn't look like there were, but I want to pause and make sure that if you have a question for any of us, we take a moment.
Or comment. I see Jill.
Hey, Jill.
I'm going to unmute her. I got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
A question others.
Oh, it's yeah. I'm Brian Jones.
1 second, Brian. I'm going to call you in just 1 second.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
A question that I have that others may or may not have is I'm very low tech. So what assistance is there for doing things like getting people to the breakout room, getting a full screen, that type of thing?
Yeah. So there's somebody on the call today who had never used Zoom and asked if I had anything for her, and it's in the resource section at the member site. It's called How to Not Look Ugly on a Webcam. And it's graphics. It's all these graphics and great suggestions. And you did it really well, Lori. You look beautiful. And so there's lots of resources, Jill. Plus, I'm happy to Zoom with you prior to, well, you'll be Zooming actually every week for 14 weeks. You'll have it down by the time you do your own program. Yeah. And I think it's 4 pages called Using Zoom that's specific to using Zoom with your program. You know, every little thing. Yeah, great question, Jill. And then there was Brian.
Yeah, unmute Brian.
Yeah, Brian just joined you because of technical inabilities, but I've got I've got the phone, but my computer's still spinning. I don't have an image or anything, but at least I'm online.
Well, great, Brian. And I hope you'll watch the replay because we had some fun and we saw some things that you might enjoy seeing. And yeah, so
How would I access the replay? How do I access the replay?
Mark?
If you have registered for this call and you got an email with all the connection info, then you will get a replay tomorrow.
A replay what? I'm sorry.
We will send a replay out to you tomorrow.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Great, Brian. Well, thanks for stopping by at the 11th hour.
Yes, I knew it was almost over, but I finally made it after coming back. So, okay, well, I'll look forward to the replay.
Yeah, and you're in luck because we started 8 minutes late, so I still have 8 minutes to go. So here's what I'd like to do.
Okay.
First, are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Joanne.
Hi. I was just wondering one thing, how long the program has been going and how many facilitators are there already, and how much do you get a response from people wanting the program once you actually get in touch with them?
Okay, I understood the first two parts of that question, but I'm not sure I understood the third. Let's address that first.
Okay.
Thank you, Joanne. I just launched this program in August. So we have one great graduating class, and it was full. I had a certain number that I wanted, and it was full to the brim. So those graduates are now actually doing their first programs, which is very exciting. And so what was the third question last question?
Well, because it's a new program, you might not have stats on this or anything, but how many people that actually get exposed to what the program can do for them, like either through Facebook ads or however you advertise, actually, like what's the volume of interest?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we'll have more stats after your class. Yeah, these were the pioneers. These were the pioneers. And they're magnificent. Jill and then Bob.
And I actually, just to kind of answer a little bit more to Joanne's question. First of all, Joanne, I didn't even realize it was you. I was like, I'll have to explain later, but you look so good. Like I really thought like you were 20 years old, and maybe I don't know, I thought you must have been a friend of Marion's or something. But when you talk about what is the response and everything, like she said, the program was full. But yes, how long has this been around? You first wrote the book 10 years ago, Marion, and you've spoken this in front of literally thousands of people. Have the message.
Yes, that is true, Mark. I mean, my husband and I have been doing workshops on the agreements since the book was published, since before that. Which was, the first book was 2005. And we've done major workshops for like Unity regional meetings, and we were at the Toronto New Thought conference. We were the keynote workshop a couple of years ago. And so we're out there. So and here's another thing. It's not like the revolutionary agreements are new. The first book, I offered a free facilitator's guide. And there were lots of groups, especially in New Thought programs, who used that free facilitator's guide to deliver programs all over, internationally. And then there's a set of agreements that was a developmental set of agreements that's been translated into 10 languages. So it's not the agreements aren't new. The certification program is new. Thank you for that clarification, Mark.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Great.
Thank you,
Jill and Bob. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to unmute you now, Jill. You're unmuted.
I am muted or I'm not?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. One of the things, and I tried it out today, is I am in sales, but I wasn't sure if I could sell this program. Now, I've been familiar with the agreements for a number of years, but I haven't sold them. And I had lunch with a person today who went through the leadership program I sell, and I had the book with me, Revolutionary Agreements. I handed it to her and I said, I'm going to be taking this program for certification, what do you think would be the interest of other people who have no exposure to it? And she had no exposure. The look on her face as she read just the index of titles to each segment was like, oh my gosh, where did this ever come from? And she started asking all sorts of questions. And is she a possible person to come into a training class that I'll hold down the road? Possibly. But it helped me to see how it grabs people. And I think that is what it's all about. And that's why people come into programs.
Thank you, Jill. And I'll just let you know that I have these bookmarks that have all the agreements on them. And you can have them too. And they're wonderful to share with people. So thank you, Jill. Thanks, Joanne. And Bob?
Yeah, just quickly back to Joanne's question, and Mark, you and Marion have covered a lot of opportunities.
And speak up just a little bit, Bob.
Sure, sorry about that. I see an opportunity, Joanne, in all the groups and interactions that we have to invite people to be a part of this program. Example, maybe your homeowners association at your condo, maybe the faith community you're a part of, whatever faith community that might be. And so there's a lot of different opportunities for us to invite groups of people. I'm going to do a program with a Unity Church that has lost a lot of its congregation in a year. It's without a minister. A new minister is there now, and so to rebuild. And so I'm offering just a 2-hour program with them in hopes that many of them will sign up to do all 12 weeks with me to benefit that whole faith community. There really are an amazing amount of opportunities. And the second edition of the book has a lot of examples of how they've been used that Mary can tell you more about. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
And Bob brought up something else that while this program is offered to give you everything you need to do a 12-week online program, which is what I'm offering, Bob is doing it as a live workshop. I know that other participants are doing it as a year-long program at a Unity Church and CSL. And I can see people who, I've got Tony on the line, and I thought about Tony when I first started this program because of his work in relationships and mediation. He's a mediation divorce lawyer. And I know that this is such a huge part in relations, not to, like Marion said earlier, fix the relationship by trying to change the other person. It's that whole inner part of it and being able to create that. So I see it as being able to integrate it into other programs and, like Bob said, bringing it into other organizations. And Joanne, I know you have so many different certifications and so much training. I see it as just another tool in your tool belt.
So one of the graduates of the first program, 2 of them actually are addiction counselors. And one of them's been invited to 2 different treatment centers to offer this program. So it just gives me a lot of joy when people integrate it into their chosen work. So I'm not asking people to do my work. It's like, how does this serve your work and the people that you serve? Yeah, and you can just join me in doing it if you like. So anything else before we wrap up? I have one more thing I'd like to invite you to do.
I have a comment. I guess it's also a question.
Thank you, Nancy Ann.
The thoughts that are running through my mind right now are very current with the shift of the political environment out there.
Yes.
And I've just recently been attending a meeting designed to inspire social activists and what do we do now and how do we get together? And it occurred to me that people that do activism, to do it well, requires having a bunch of agreements if you're really going to go anywhere.
Yes, I agree.
And bringing different groups of people from diverse directions that have baseline focus that's the same to support each other. And it's really hard. It's always been hard for me to hang out with activists because the energies are too strong. I get blown away as a sensitive person. But the idea of bringing diverse people together that really want to bring change agents who really want to bring change that's really pertinent to the time we're in right now need a baseline to start from. And I haven't seen the agreement so that I could chew on them because that was very fast. But it seems like a very powerful thing for that whole population of people where it's taking.
Nancy, we hear your doggy saying hello.
No, that's not mine.
Oops, I don't know where that is then.
Could be Jill. She's still on live.
Yeah,
It
not
should.
mine.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. So
Yeah.
Nancy Ann, beautiful. And there is a way to offer agreements to groups. And it's that way is to, well, I don't want to go into it fully right now, but let's just say to be able to select the agreements that serve that group rather than saying this is them.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And even to use it as a jumping point for developing their own sets of agreements, which is what a couple of business consultants do with teams. Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So in the last moment, Mark, I know it's the last, is it beyond the last moment?
No, it's not beyond the last moment. I just wanted to kind of add to exactly what Nan was saying, when somebody else was adding that. I actually think this is very timely. Today, more than ever, people are looking for ways to deal and cope. So again, if you're helping people to do that, and then Tony was asking, how can this training be incorporated into my private coaching instead of using it to train others to be certified? So you're not training people how to train people to be certified. You're certifying them to use it in their practice. I just wanted to.
Yeah, let me be clear about this. There's two different programs. There's a 12-week program that Mark and Bob will be delivering as graduates of the certification program, and that's 1 week per agreement. And then there's the certification program, which is certifying them to do that. And within the 14-week certification program, plus the monthly roundtables that follow, is that 12-week program. So it's a little confusing. There's two programs. One's a 12-week program. The other's the certification program, 14 weeks, of which the core is the 12-week program that you are learning to lead. I hope that's clear.
It is.
Thank you. Thanks.
So yes, I know you wanted one more thing before we go. And everybody good with that?
I wanted to revisit the agreement that early on, before you knew much about the agreements, when I was just reading them, I said, listen carefully for the agreement that if you were to practice it, could positively influence your life right away. So I wanted you to revisit that, and after we gave you a little bit more look into the agreements, would you change it to a different agreement? And I'll move. I don't know if you can read what's behind me. There they are.
And if not, you can put it on speaker view, and then you become very big, and I'm putting it on speaker view.
And I'll lean on my hand.
And
so,
while people are doing that, you kind of know more. I'll read them. I agree to live my mission.
Let me just say, hold on a second, Mark. Yeah. Why don't you type in the one that you choose into the chat box so you can, practice using the chat box.
That's great.
I agree to whatever it is. And I can do it, Mark. Thanks. Sure. So I'll read my bookmark. So in the truth arena, I agree to live my mission. Speak my truth with compassion. Look within when I react. Keep doing what works and change what doesn't. And again, you're looking for the one that if you practice just one, not all 12, just one, it could have a very positive impact on your life. So I agree to listen with my heart, to respect our differences, to resolve conflicts directly, and to honor our choices. And in the area of gratitude, I agree to give and receive thanks, see the best in myself and others, look for blessings in disguise, and lighten up. So I'm going to open my chat box so I can see if people are putting theirs in. Okay, I've got 3, 4.
And Bob really practiced that one really hard, to respect our differences over the last 6 months. That was not easy.
He is one of those social activists that we heard about, but with lots of love in his heart.
And Nancy, and I think that you could Bob has his activism in a very beautiful shell. I think even your sensitive personality would really enjoy spending time with him.
So Mark, is there anything more before I just do one little closing?
I just really want, I had this conversation with Nancy Ann actually earlier today about investing in programs and the promise that comes with programs. So many people offer, what am I going to get out of it? You're going to get out of it what you put into it, which is the main thing that I find. And when you decide whether or not to invest in a program, it's really listening to your heart and seeing, is this something that resonates with me? And that's really what I want. We're not hard salespeople. You have a great sales background in health, something that you're passionate about. I know how passionate you are about this, but I just really want people to check in with their hearts and to feel into what's coming up in there. Thank you. Oops, wait, you're muted. I didn't do it. We lost you. Didn't this happen once in the class? That's so funny. I don't know.
We've lost Marion.
We have. She just lost her volume.
Here I am.
There you are.
I sat on this. And that is what happened in that class, Mark.
Oh, that's funny.
I discovered later. So Mark talked about the heart. So I'm going to talk about the money. How's that for a good partnership? So one of the things I had really had fun doing was constructing the certification program in a way that you're required to do a practicum at the end of the program, a 12-week practicum, and you have to charge for it because some of these people, especially the ones in the new thought arena, think that being in service means not making money, and I don't get that. So we all exchange money, and it's just energy. Money. One of my best friends wrote a book called "Money is Love," and so my intention was that people could actually earn back all, or at least some, of their investment in themselves in the certification program by the time they actually are certified. So there you go. Just wanted to add that.
Beautiful.
And then if there's not anything else, I have this beautiful quote that I love. It actually opens up my book. And it's from Maya Angelou, who said, "I don't trust any revolution where love is not allowed." And that's why my new tagline is "Lead with Love." So thank you all. I'm looking around these beautiful faces and telephones. Thank you all for joining us today. And, set up an appointment if you want to talk about the certification program. Let Mark or Bob know if they're the ones who invited you to do their 12-week programs. I do hope to see you all again. I know I'll be seeing some of you for sure. So I will say aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Good night, everyone.
Aloha.
Yeah, let me unmute everybody so we can all give a big aloha.
Oh, good.
I know a lot of times we end in a kiss or whatever. This is coming from Hawaii. We all know much aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
It's sunny in Hawaii.
Good to see your
It's sunny
faces.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, still
Come
sunny.
see us. Let's party.
That's my sweetie.
Uh-huh. I agree to lighten up all the time.
Bye-bye now. Aloha.
Bye.
Much love.
Bye.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.